always have it.
A very warm welcome to the program. I am Dennis Adigunloye. It's been 18 years in the making, but the 9th Senate has achieved what other assemblies before it could not. That is, passing the long-awaited Petroleum Industry Bill. When signed into law, the Senate says the PIB will reflect the yearnings of stakeholders in the oil and gas sector and make the market more competitive in Nigeria.
Consideration of the report began with a closed-door session involving the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources and the Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation. 2 hours after the executive session, senators began clause-by-clause consideration of the bill presented by the Senate Joint Committee on Petroleum Downstream, Upstream and Gas.
Bill 1 passed into law will strengthen the accountability, transparency of the NNPC Limited as a full-fledged Karma company under statutory regulations, oversight with better returns to its shareholders, the Nigerian people.
This gas flaring is making people sick. It is damaging the environment. The remediation we seek is not construction of pipelines.
They are optimistic that the bill, which is made up of 5 chapters which include governance and institutions, administration, host communities development, fiscal framework and miscellaneous provisions, will bring about the long-awaited change in the oil and gas sector. But a point of order from Senator Ahmed Bakaita resulted in the reduction of the 5% for Host Communities Development Fund to 3%.
The amendment is just instead of 5% to read 3%.
This elicited a call for division from Senator George Sekibo, which was eventually withdrawn.
That you increase the number a little bit and put the question again.
The bill also made provision for 30% of funding for exploration of frontier basins across the country and making the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation a commercial and limited liability company.
Those in favor that this bill be now read the 3rd time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. At least the demons have been defeated in this chamber. We have passed the bill by the grace of God. And let me also say that this is one of the products of the executive and the legislature working together.
Now, just to get a feel of the magnitude of what the 9th Senate has achieved, let's get this background report on the Petroleum Industry Bill put together by National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Nkwo.
June 2021 marks the end of an era in Nigeria's top legislative arm of government, the termination of the Petroleum Industry Bill 18 years parliamentary journey. The Petroleum Industry Bill was conceived during the Olusegun Obasanjo administration in 2000 as part of recommendations by the Oil and Gas Sector Reform Implementation Committee headed by Dr. Rilwanu Lukman. Its first legislative courtship with the National Assembly was in the 4th Assembly in 2003 as an executive bill. Like a new bride, the Petroleum Industry Bill received great acceptance by the legislators in view of its potential to reform Nigeria's oil and gas sector, open up the industry, attract investors and give adequate attention to host communities. But at the time, it turned out into a parliamentary tug-of-war, and its courtship with the 6th Assembly did not go beyond second reading. The 7th Assembly also failed to pass it, while the 8th Assembly broke the bill into 4 versions. That is, the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill, Petroleum Hosts and Impacted Community Bill, Petroleum Industry Administration Bill, and the Petroleum Industry Fiscal Bill. That assembly was able to pass only the governance version, which did not receive presidential assent due to some critical observations made by the executive.
because it had so many what was called impurities then, so many reservations, so much monies were given to different of the agencies under the petroleum, and then Mr. President considered that there will be less money available for the Federation account to distribute.
The Ninth National Assembly, in consultation with the executive, ensured that the areas of contention were addressed, especially the regulatory authority and the percentage of dividends to host communities. This time, as a single bill from the executive has been passed by the Senate.
First time in this, within these 2 years, we had a retreat. We never had it before in the history of this assembly, where the executive and the legislature will spend 3 days to have a retreat.
The enactment of the Petroleum Industry Bill into law is long overdue, having engulfed huge sums of money for retreats and consultations since 2003. It has seen Nigeria incur losses from regulatory uncertainties in the sector, with some individuals and companies taking advantage of the legal loopholes. The passage of this bill into law is expected to be the game changer that will fully unlock the Nigerian oil and gas sector.
Let's now hear from Senator representing Nasarawa West and Chairman, Senate Committee on Agriculture, Abdullahi Adamu, on various issues of national importance. I began by asking him to assess the recently concluded public hearings on review of the 1999 Constitution.
Thank you very much for having me, and you are most welcome to our farm.
Welcome, sir.
Shabu Integrated Farms. You should forgive me for taking you this far. No. If you had a choice, you probably would have taken this interview somewhere in Kefi or in Abuja. I'm more at home here. Now, as far as the issue of public hearing on the National Assembly's effort at constitutional amendment is concerned, I believe that the objective for having various levels of hearing has been substantially achieved. The whole essence is to get the buy-in of the citizenry, so that it doesn't just end up being some kind of exercise by some elite that have cornered the thinking of Nigerians, or what they want Nigerians to have. We thought we should give the grassroots some level of participation in the hearing, the public hearing for the constitutional amendment. That means we want to be able to get from the grassroots the feeling, the attitude, the opinion that the Nigerian population at that level have on the issue of constitutional amendment. And I was privileged to lead the sitting in Jos, in the North Central Zone, and the participation was very, very extensive. We had something like 192, memoranda, and except a few of them that were absent, but who had submitted their memoranda. Except for those, we substantially listened to the submission of each group that sponsored a memoranda. We get an opportunity to come and be heard. Let them come and make a presentation of their memoranda. So once we identify any group or individual who has submitted a memo and the memo is registered with us for the public hearing, we give them opportunity to be heard. And I was more than impressed with the extent of participation, the pouring of emotion, sentiments, passion for some of the issues. Were very, very educating. And I thought it was worth our while that we did it. We also had a public hearing in Abuja. That was the national one, where people came from all parts of Nigeria to be listened to. Essentially, this academia, the so-called Nigerian elite, they were in Abuja, and it was very, very comprehensive for 2 days. So I think substantially the whole objective for the public hearing has been achieved. We've listened to people. If there are any issues anybody took for granted at one point, you are in a position now, better position, to have an assessment of the depth of the emotions as far as the particular subject matter of the constitutional review is concerned. I think it was worth our while. It depends where you go. Those who had their eyes on local government, they wanted the issue of local governments to be addressed, the issue of the autonomy of local governments to be addressed, the issue of what the Constitution conceived of local governments to be, that is achieved. The proposal made very, very clearly. There were some submissions as to taking another look at the exclusive legislative list, that is the list that is the sole monopoly of the national government or the federal government to legislate upon or to implement. There were submissions in that regard, and we've had that before we got to this stage of the constitutional amendment effort. And no, I was not taken aback. I was not surprised, at least, of some of the representations. And yes, there's some depth of sentiments, emotions, and things, to let the lower arm, lower level of governance, because we have got about three tier, arrangement for governance in Nigeria. You have got the national government, you have got the state government and local government, administration of 3 tiers. And the hues and cries, particularly by the elite, is the federal government seem to be cornering, or seem to have cornered with the Constitution. It's very possible for the federal government to corner substantially, some of the items that could hitherto be shared by the lower rank of the tier of governance in Nigeria. That is, to see to what extent there will be a reduction of the power, so to say, as enshrined in the exclusive legislative list, how it will be watered down, to let the lower tiers also have some little greater bite at the list, as against what is now obtainable. We've had that virtually everywhere when there were discussions on that line. To what extent we go depends on the aggregation. Now, after we've got the zonal public hearing and the national public hearing, one will do all the collation, complete collation. We will report back to Parliament. We will report back to the plenary session of the Senate and the House of Representatives. And then and only then would we say this is the sum total of the submissions that require our. And whatever we decide is not in finality. We will have to get through it again to the states to make inputs to what before it comes. And there's a constitutional provision as to how many of the 36 states in Abuja, who had their position, how many of them will get together before we can say yes, item A or B will go through. All right. And once that is done, we will take whatever recommendations to the President, Commander-in-Chief. The issues really, the issue of police, state police have come quite a number of places, and it's very interesting to listen to the submissions, to the school of thought that believes strongly for state governments to have state police do the recruitment, take up the financing and what have you. And they make cases that you just can't afford not to listen to. But at the same time, the other side of the scale, the other side of the coin rather, is that those who argue against it, they argue against seeing what governors are doing today. If you now add police to their list, only God knows what will happen, particularly in terms of political tolerance and what have you. People came very strongly on that. All right? And people talk about the fact, look, today, more than 2/3 of the states have difficulty paying their salaries and wages. More than 2/3 have got problem going with what the Constitution has given them as their responsibilities today. What will happen when you take the entire gamut of the Nigerian policing and add it to the states? How will they cope? Just some of the arguments people came up with. And one it's made very interesting listening. I think those are the main issues. And agriculture, they didn't talk much of it, and that's where the real life of this country lies. Now, there's not much of submission on agriculture. Of course, at the moment, it's just like on the concurrent list. How many states really, before Buhari's administration, how many states were really seriously addressing the issue of agriculture? And all this talk about politics, pep, blowing hot and cold, adds up to nothing when we can't feed ourselves. That's the number one. That's what the government is to ensure the protection, preservation of life, life and property. Life first. That means that your welfare, the first point of welfare is your belly.
Very important.
All right. if you can't feed the citizenry, it's not worth its while. And you can't feed the citizenry unless you can produce what the citizenry want to eat. And once the citizen cannot produce what they want to eat, then they are slaves to those countries that will bring the food that they need to survive. And that's why the sovereignty of the country is put to question when there's no food, when there's hunger in the land, or when we are not producing what we eat. And there was not much of representation in that regard. And for me, that's one area that should have been addressed really properly.
All right. Okay. Distinguished, assess for us the 9th Senate over the last 2 years. Obviously, there's been COVID-19 for a significant period of time, which has given you a lot of challenges. But in terms of your legislative agenda,
I think I have no problem whatsoever. You know, submitting on behalf of the National Assembly that the 9th Senate has been the most productive since 1999. The 9th Assembly has been the most productive. We passed more legislations than any for the same period. That is just for the first 2 years. And the relationship between the Parliament, the National Assembly, and the Executive has been fairly tolerable, fairly smooth. Because we don't believe in the 9th Senate that where to go is to have confrontation with the Executive. Because there must be a clear head, clear mind that the legislature, the Executive, and the judiciary belong to the same government. We are all members of this same government, Buhari's administration. So this grandstanding that was the lot of the other assemblies. You know, we are different. We don't beg to be different. We are different because this is a principle we believe in. We're in the same government. We should lend good understanding to the affairs of governance generally. We believe very strongly that if Buhari's administration succeeds, we succeed. God forbid us failure. We belong to that failure. You know, so our attitude is very positive, and it is necessary to enjoy. So people see the good relationship as a failure, as like a sellout, if you permit that very strong expression. But it is not so. The person who knows what governance is all about will know that it is not necessary. The grandstanding does not give you any points in terms of positive, attitude to governance. And we've chosen to go positive rather than negative. So if there are areas of disagreement, we can go and jojo with the Executive at the right level, and we'll solve the problems in the interest of the public. But while you are holding the budget that is supposed to start, the calendar is supposed to start from, say, January. 1st January. You don't pass a budget until about end of May or June, and you have it signed maybe in July. 5 months to the end of that financial year. It doesn't make sense at all. We have tried to get our calendar for fiscal year back to what we were supposed to have. It ends in December, the preceding year, and then the new year starts in January. And we've done the first year, we've done second year, we are looking forward to the third year now with the same thing. And that's also to show you the smoothness of the relationship between the executive and the legislature. And over and above that, as between ourselves and amongst ourselves as legislators in the National Assembly, there is little less rancor on partisanship now than we used to see. We can criticize ourselves. We can take different viewpoints on any particular issue, that is before us for consideration. It doesn't matter whether I'm PDP or I'm APC or youth whatever party. All right. The fact remains that we have one common objective, and we try as much as possible to reduce partisanship in the affairs of the National Assembly when we consider any particular bill or any particular subject matter. Yes, we are human. If I find something is happening and my place is going to be shortchanged, yes, I can be hard. But at the end of the day, the voice of the majority is the voice of God.
Definitely. All right. Lastly, distinguished, like we said before we came on air, we're in a different scenery as we're normally used to. Just as a passionate man on agriculture, just tell us exactly where we are and just give us a bit of...
Well, this is, like I said in the beginning, you are on Shabu Integrated Farm.
Right.
And here, like the word implies, integrated, we do crops, we do grains, we do tuber, we do fishery, we do a bit of horticulture too, banana, and plantain, and we're into Ogu. I don't know, as in Nigeria, I'm sure you know Ogu. So these are some of the things we do. We are also into livestock. We have here cows, we have sheep, and for me, as I acquired this land, this place, I started operation here in 1982.
Wow, 40 years ago almost.
July 1982, that's when I started operation here. All right, and I'm very happy with what we're doing, the rate at which we're growing. I'm happy with it. And I was first and foremost a farmer. Before I became a governor or a minister. In 1982 I was not a minister. 1982 I was just probably chairman of Benue Cement.
Okay.
All right. And I grew along. I became a governor in the end. In fact, I became a minister before becoming governor. And I became governor. I was secretary of board of trustees after my governorship tenure. And 2011 or so I became a senator. And every day I have that I feel I'm free enough, I'm not under pressure of my legislative duties, I'm on this farm.
Right.
For me, I hope if God spares my life, it's a good fallback. By the time I finish, I don't want to be an idle old politician. All right, I want to be a busy old politician, so that I will not be a hungry advisor or hungry kingmaker. All right. That is the whole essence, and I feel a sense of satisfaction. We have been propagating the issue of Nigeria should feed itself, free, Nigeria from hunger. Having enough, we must do it, but show example. That's why Nigerian public service permits or allows for public officers to own farms. All right, and that's a very good policy. So if everybody who is able can till some little piece of land and produce whatever you produce, you won't eat alone in your family. No, it will go somewhere to have a spillover. Even if you just feed your own family, you reduce the quantum, of demand for agricultural produce, for the citizenry. So that is part of my driving, philosophy for committing so much time. I have one or two other farms before this. And Well, after this, sorry, not before this, after this. And there now I'm just concentrating on just trees, economic trees, mango, oranges, cashew. That's what I'm doing, developing there. All right. And I have the one I started in the year 2000, where I produced, in 1996, sorry, 1996. I had fire on this farm. So I was forced to virtually have another outlet. Okay. And it happened to be the place I started my livestock farming. You know, and that's why I'm doing my yogurt. I started producing yogurt way back, about the year 1999, in the year 2000. I started producing yogurt. I'm still producing the same yogurt. And for your information, this time I don't have problem being immodest. We have the best yogurt in Nigerian market today.
Really?
The best yogurt, including those imported. Wow. We have the best in the Nigerian shelf today. Wow. Nagari yogurt.
Excellent. Distinguished Senator Abdullahi Adamu, thanks very much.
Pleasure.
I'm grateful for the interview.
Pleasure.
Well, that concludes this edition of the program. Thanks for sharing your time with us. Till next week, I am Dennis Adigundoye. See you soon.